tight pants for you. Yeah. If anybody wants to come forward, you can come forward. You don't have to stay in the back, but I know that's where the naughty kids sit. I see you. All right. I know you guys are ready to see somebody come to the stage, but first we have a little bit of a teaser. Go ahead and roll that beautiful footage. While I pose.
Would you like to dance today? All you have to do is come to the Crypt Keeper's party. A monster bash, if you will. Come on down!
Please welcome to the stage, Kassir!
It's Crypt Keepers in the house. With a groove that's nasty and mean, like the effect of a guillotine. A permanent headache's the end of the mission, cause you have entered the Keeper's terror vision. Is it on? Do we need it?
I mean,
Hello, kiddies.
there we have. All right, let's. I know so many people that laugh just haunts them. I mean, from that laugh just haunts them.
Well, thanks. It was kind of the gateway drug to horror. I say that to people when they come to their table jokingly, but they don't laugh. They're like,
No,
yeah,
for
it's
real.
actually true. You know?
And it's funny because it's a borderline of the dark comedy, you know, but then it gets a little bit more into the nightmares, going into the tales.
Comic book, you know, comic book brought to life. I mean, they worked really hard on our. I think that one of the successes of the series was that it was trying to, as hard as possible, to bring the comic book to life. They even would use some of the pages of the comic book as storyboards to shoot the show. You know, they would go, oh, I love that shot. This guy in the foreground holding a head, in the background somebody's running for their life with no head.
And then it would come to life.
Let's use that, you know.
So let's back up a little bit because we obviously know Tales from the Crypt. Let's talk about how you got into voice work.
How I got into voice work.
Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt.
Wow. What a hell of its first job.
Oh God, you know, I hate that I can't see everybody.
Can we bring the house lights up a bit?
Yeah.
Because we're going to ask questions and a little bit from the audience we
I
can
love
see.
seeing. It's funny. I can see all your hairdos from behind, kind of like just your auras.
From
you know?
behind you'd see the logo.
But you know, I always wanted to be an actor from the time I was a kid. You know, I really. My mom used to make her own clothes and stuff, so I would like say, hey mom, can you make me a costume, you know, with one arm, you know, and stuff the arm, and I'd do this bit where my hand would come up out of my shirt, you know, and stuff like
So
that.
you're a creepy kid from the beginning.
Oh, totally. I would do circuses in my basement for the other kids. I, you know, charge them a penny, but 5 cents for the candy. It was, you know, like the movie theater does,
All right.
you know, who makes all the money on the candy. you know?
Business-minded.
Yeah, and, you know, and I was an actor in high school, and somehow my buddy Fred and I used to get to do the morning announcements. And so, you know, every morning kids would be like waiting to hear what we were gonna do. It'd be like, you know, the following morning announcement brought to you by a grant from the Mobile Corporation. You know, we'd do like, you
So you're already
know.
doing voices then?
Yeah, and we'd imitate the teachers, we'd do the Beatles, you know, we'd do all kinds of stuff. And then we would get like free tickets to all the events because they'd say, hey, can you plug the gymnastic troupe? You know, we get tickets or whatever, you know, the prom, whatever, we get free tickets. And so I kind of, you know, was obviously in my blood. I remember having my first tape recorder, which was probably about that big with buttons on it, you know. And you put a cassette tape in it, and I'd be, you know, I'd be impersonating Tom Jones and stuff. Just help yourself to my lips. You know, I would turn on Ed Sullivan or something, and I would imitate everything that I would say. Of course, my brothers and sisters were like, "Shut up, Johnny."
Are you the oldest or youngest?
Second to youngest.
Oh, so middle
5.
kid wanting that attention?
Yeah, but my brother was a 5-year mistake, so, you know, I was we used it, he's 6'4", but the milkman was short. I don't understand how that happened, but Anyway, sorry, Mom. But,
We learn all sorts of things at school.
yeah, I know, right? So I was the youngest for a little while, but, you know, I was one of those kids with a big imagination. You know, I was dyslexic as a kid, and they didn't really know what that was, and they just said I was kind of lazy and everything, but really I wasn't lazy, just didn't understand what was going on.
Learn differently.
Yeah. You know, I mean, now I think they spend a lot more time trying to find out how each kid learns, you know. And you know, when I kind of figured it out by the time I was in my second time in third grade. But, and I had a teacher who, she was like, oh my God, you're so good when you do it in front of the class. And so she would have me read out loud in front of the class, or whether it was poetry or something like that.
So it helped you lean into your creativity.
Yeah, and I would play the characters and stuff, you know. And so then I, you know, out of high school, I wanted, you know, I decided I was going to go for it full tilt and studied it in college. I got my degree in theater and thought I'd make a, you know, make a living in the theater in New York, and you find out really quickly that it pays shit. So,
You become a waiter in New York.
yeah, my first off-Broadway show paid $175 a week. I was living in an apartment with, you know, like a one-bedroom apartment with 3 other people. And, you know, so it was, you know, I started street performing to make extra money in front of the Metropolitan Museum. And like everybody knew me as this guy that would climb the building across the street and put up his banner, you know, from the museum and come down and perform on the street. People would sit on the steps, and I'd have my own theater and do all that stuff.
You
And
didn't have to pay overhead or anything.
Exactly. I got arrested a couple of times but, for blocking traffic. But, you know, so then I was, you know, I was with a comedy group from back in Baltimore where I grew up. We used to do sketch comedy and got pretty well known and toured for the USO, doing, you know, for the US military all over the world, doing shows and stuff like that, which was kind of fun. And so I kind of did all these bits and characters and that kind of thing, but had not really done any stand-up, but I had gotten in an off-Broadway musical called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down.
And who are you?
Rhetorically speaking,
It was implied.
it was implied. It was about stand-up. Think Dreamgirls. Everybody know the show Dreamgirls?
Sure, yeah.
It was Think Dreamgirls, but with stand-up comics. So it was a musical about 3 stand-up comics and their rise into the TV industry. Like alone, they couldn't get anywhere, but the 3 of them come together and become a 3-guy team, and they wind up getting their own TV series and with all the trappings and everything. We played all the agents, and we played all the, you know, the interviewers, you know, all these different things.
A cast of thousands done
Yeah,
by 3.
exactly.
Yeah.
Played by 3 guys, you know, making fun of themselves on stage, so you would get their life, what was happening to them by their routines. And it was me and Scott Bakula,
You know him?
who we all love. And Scott was really good playing like your MC type stand-up. He was so good. And a guy named Jerry Colker, who had written the piece. He played kind of the angry lawyer dropout from Harvard who decided he was going to get up on his soapbox and do angry stand-up comedy.
Political stand-up, yeah.
Yeah, and I was kind of like the Andy Kaufman guy
Thank you very
who
much.
like had no sense of reality except through his act, you know. I'd come up on stage and, you know, in our monk's robe and hang myself over the piano and just record it and then walk off stage, you know. It was
Performance
like,
art.
Exact.
Okay.
So the next thing you know, everybody thinks I'm a stand-up comic. They're like, oh my God, this guy's like really can do this stuff. And Star Search, does everybody remember
Yes,
Star
Ed
Search?
McMahon.
Ed McMahon.
You did Star Search?
I won Star Search.
Shut up.
I was a stand-up comic. Had never done, they came to me and they went, we want you to be on Star Search. I went, what is it, as a singer? I go, I'm in a musical, I can sing obviously, but Sam Harris was on the show at the time and I was like, I can't sing like that guy. That guy can really sing. And they go, no, we want you to come on as a stand-up comic. And I'm like, well, you know I'm not really a stand-up comic, right? This is the part I'm playing. And they go, well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, fuck, have you seen my act?
But I play one on
I was
Off-Broadway.
like, I'm in a club tomorrow working on this shit. And so they were like, well, you got 2.5 minutes. So, like, I started going back to everything from stuff that I had done with the comedy group Animal Crackers that I was with to stuff that I had done when I was doing the morning announcements with Fred. You know,
Your whole repertoire.
yeah,
Bring it in.
like I'm doing my bit. I used to do the Wizard of Oz in like 12 minutes, like the entire movie. I was like, I could do that in 2.5 minutes. Is it twisted? Is it twisted? Dorothy? Dorothy? Let me in. Come on, Toto.
We represent the lollipop here, the lollipop. As mayor of the Munchkin City and the county of the land of Oz, we welcome you most regally. Oh, we gotta verify it. Who killed my sister? Was it you, the Ruby Slivers? Oh, rubbish, you have no powers here. Be gone before someone drops a house on you. All right, I'll buy my tie. But I'll get you my pretty little dog, too. Fly, fly, ah! Dun, 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 dun. Oreo. Oreo. What's them? What's them? That's the test of the Wicked Witch. Oh, Dorothy's in that awful place. Oh, I hate to think of her in there. Fellas, we've got to get her out. I got a plan to get in there, and you're gonna lead us. All right, we're going in for Dorothy. Wicked Witch or no Wicked Witch. Guards or no guards, just one thing I want you fellas to do. What's that? Talk me out of it. Anyway. There you go.
That was brilliant! Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
Anyway, so I kept winning, so I kept having to come up with another 2.5 minutes. Eventually, I had an act.
Keep doing movies?
Well, I was doing Three Guys Naked off Broadway and flying back and forth from New York and doing this show. I didn't keep doing movies. I mean, I'd have them roll me out on a dolly and I'd do a 3-in-1 machine. You know, I mean, I would do like performance art, kind of weird stuff. And I just kept winning. And then, you know, I wound up in the semifinals. I beat Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals, who was relatively unknown at the time.
Yeah.
And I beat Sinbad in the finals. And I won $100,000. And each week they would have all these guest stars on there. They'd have, you know, Bill Cosby. They would have Jamie Farr. They would have Carl Reiner. They had Phyllis Diller, you know. And we had Tom Jones on the show one week. He's like, I love this kid. He's going to open for me in Vegas. And everybody's like, I'm all like, great. Just help yourself to my lips. You know, I'm thinking, I'm going to do Tom Jones, right? But people are like, oh my God, you're going to open for Tom Jones in Vegas. I go, I can't open for Tom Jones in Vegas. So like, why not? I go, I have no fucking act. I was just making this shit up as I go along.
Make it till you make it, man.
That's it. They were like, get in the club. You know, put your act together into 20 minutes. That's what you need as an opening act.
Tight 20, yeah.
Tight 20, you know. But then, you know, people were, and you know, that's what I did. And I wound up opening for Tom Jones and the Temptations and the Four Tops on their TNT tour, and Lou Rawls and Richard Belzer, and I opened for Rodney Dangerfield in his club.
Just Hollywood, like royalty.
Oh, forget it, you know. And then, you know, and then of course they're like, well, we want you to headline in the clubs and stuff like that. So then I had to come up with an hour. And so I'd be like, you know, I was doing like the Robin Williams thing where I'd go up and like take things out of people's purses and start
I can see
improvising.
little Robin Williams in there. Is it big inspiration?
Well, it's huge inspiration. He would come into the improv and he would invite me up on stage with some of the other comics and we would do improv. Of course, you know, you had to just go along with his jet vapor because he was just brilliant. You know, I mean, I just have to go along with wherever he went, you know. And but it led to a bunch of sitcom work and that kind of thing. My first series was First and 10. Does anybody remember First and 10?
Yes.
It's about a bunch of crickets. No. First and 10 was HBO's first series about a football team. O.J. Simpson was the general manager.
I've never heard of him.
Delta Burke, it was her first series. She owned the team. She had won a divorce settlement. And then,
I remember that, yeah. Okay.
you know, Chris Maloney was a quarterback on it. Jason Begay was a quarterback on it for a season or two. And then they would have real football players on there. And it was, you know, this is when HBO created their formula of comedy, sports, and sex. You know, of course, they brought me in for the sex, but you know. But I played
football?
Yeah, no, I played the Bulgarian field goal kicker. He could kick 60-yard field goals.
Bulgarian football kicker.
You should have seen the audition. I came in with a Nerf football, and I wouldn't speak English to them when I walked in. I was just making it up. And the guy goes,
That's an improv game, it's gibberish.
oh, totally. And he goes, what's your name? Zadajkinuski. And he goes, oh, I go, I kick now? They go, sure, I took off my shoe. I put the Nerf football in the shoe like a tee, and I smashed it into the Venetian blinds. I go, they're going to have me arrested or I'm going to get this part.
Yeah.
And I got the part. I was supposed to do 2 episodes, and I had them laughing so hard for 2 episodes that I wound up on the show for 7 years. So,
Wow, that's staying power.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, nicely done.
But HBO knew that I did, all these voices, because I had no act, I was doing all these voices. What I had essentially made as my stand-up was a guy who was addicted to television, and I could switch, I had a remote control, I could switch channels
But
on
that is
myself.
the act, yeah.
It is, and, it was basically making fun of pop culture through all the shows we grew up with and that kind of thing. And so they knew that I did all that, so they were like, oh, we gotta have him come down to Kevin Yeager's studio where Kevin, if you know who Kevin Yeager is, he not only created Chucky, made the puppet of Chucky, but he also made the Crypt Keeper and other fun stuff. In fact, when we first started with Tales from the Crypt, they didn't give much money to work with, so he was using spare parts out of his shop. He actually used Chucky eyes on the Crypt Keeper, as he thought it would maybe be temporary, but he liked it so much he kept them in there.
That's a fun little tidbit.
Yeah. Those are Chucky's baby blue.
Chucky after a few hard nights. Yeah.
Yes. But exactly. My salad days. But so I was excited. They go, can you go down? First of all, I had collected those comic books as a kid. I mean, I loved Tales from the Crypt. I used to have to hide them from my mother.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the reason they put age codes on comic books today were because of these comic books, because they were so harshly reviewed by moms everywhere. They tried to enlist Congress to have them banned, and I was like, Mom, I'm learning to read. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, somebody with dyslexia, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
can find something that
you
you're
can read
passionate
something in
for.
a little bubble, But
Otherwise,
thank you for getting that. I used to hide them in my Casper comics. I never read Casper comics, but I had the covers so I could hide my Tales from the Crypt comic books. But I had pre-code comic books. They're probably worth like $1,000 now. My mom gave them all away with my Hot Wheels and all that stuff, right?
especially with you going on to be.
Yeah, well, that's when I went looking for them.
Wow.
But the invitation was to come down to Kevin Yeager's studio to audition to play the Crypt Keeper, and I was like, holy shit, they're making it, and I had just been doing a series for HBO. They were in their infancy, is that a proper word?
Yeah.
Infancy, and they really were, I realized how much fun we were having on the show, but so many less people were seeing it than a network show. Back then you had your 3 major networks and a few cable channels or whatever.
HBO, Cinemax.
Yeah, and so not everybody even had HBO and that kind of stuff, so it wasn't really being seen. So I was like, I thought it would just be another fun sideline gig.
Right.
So they're like, can you come down to Kevin Yeager's studio to audition for the Crypt Keeper? And I was like, oh my God, they're making, a show out of my favorite comic book. And I get to go down to Kevin's studio and see all his really cool shit,
When you read the comic book, did you envision a voice on your own?
Never. Well, I mean, the Crypt Keeper looked very different.
Yeah.
You look like, this really weird kind of creepy, guy from a back alley kind of. And when I got down to Kevin Yeager's studio and I saw what he was doing, the Crypt Keeper with the holes in his throat and the rotten teeth, and I started doing that voice for him, and I could tell he had been sitting there all day listening to people not getting what he needed, and I started doing that, and he was like, keep going, like this kind of thing.
Brought it out.
Yeah, and he starts laughing, and I start laughing, and I'm like, great, the Crypt Keeper laughs at his own jokes. I keep going. Next thing I know, he has me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner, 2 of the biggest guys in the business, in their office the next day. they're like, great, kid, we'll see you on the set. It may have been one of the easiest jobs I ever got, but...
It was just meant to be.
Meant to be. It was meant to be, and that launched... I got approached by like the best voiceover agents in the business. I'm still with them so that was 1988, by the way. In 1989, it came on the air. And I've been with the same agents all these years. Worked on camera. I've worked on stage as big as Lincoln Center in New York and that kind of thing. But over the years, not that I'm that old, not as old as the Crypt Keeper, but as you get older, just the parts start disappearing. They just don't write as many parts for your age group, and it's very competitive. Any actor who's still around is good, I mean, I compete with some of your favorite faces right out here in some of these rooms here, but...
Voices last forever.
Yeah, voices not only last forever, but you get to play things you wouldn't get to play on camera. I mean, I was the original voice of Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look at these guns. They're not going to hire me to play Deadpool, but they go, oh, let's get, when he first came into the Ultimate Alliance games and that kind of thing, they were like, let's get the Crypt Keeper guy. He talks to the camera, he's snarky, we'll get him to come in and do it.
Quick-witted, yep.
Yeah, so that all this opened up, voiceover career for me that continues. I have my studio at home, small studio at home where I can do a lot of my work. Even during the pandemic, I did all my work during...
and not have to get out of pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
I love looking at your list of credits and everything, and you see, the Crypt Keeper, you see Deadpool, you see video games and stuff like that too, but then there's like My Little Pony.
Yeah, right. People are like, what were you in Pocahontas? I was Miko the raccoon. They were like, what? Yeah.
He goes back and he's pissed.
Yeah. But, right now we're really pissed that raccoons are ripping up my yard. So I'm really unhappy about it. I was like, dude, I know Miko!
I'll call your father.
But it was funny when I auditioned for it because you go down to Disney Studios and they have, the animation building is this huge, the Frank G. Wells building is huge. You walk into a lobby that's bigger than this room and like 3 stories open, with windows and stuff, and you're sitting there like, like thinking you're getting ready to see the Wizard of Oz or something. Never mind about that man behind the curtain. And they walk out, you hear the footsteps coming down the hallway.
Click, click, click,
and I was like the only one sitting there. And they're like, okay, John, you ready to come in and audition? I go, well, I haven't seen the script. They go, well, there's no script, he doesn't have dialogue, just, because sometimes the animals speak in the Disney movies, Not stupid of me to assume that. And I walk in, and they have storyboards everywhere with all the different scenes that he's in. And then he asked me to start bringing him to life as a raccoon. And I start doing it. They're just like, how do you know how to do that? I go, I have a raccoon.
I'm part raccoon.
They're running over my roof every night. They're like, like a little SWAT team.
Inspired by true events.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like when they're having sex. I
think that was left in the cutting room floor of Pocahontas.
Yeah, totally.
That might have been
I kept saying it had to
part 2.
happen with John Smith, but they were not having it. But,
That was the adult version of Pocahontas.
played by Mel Gibson, by the way. No, just kidding. But,
We're going to take questions in just a few minutes.
we'll be back after this commercial. Now something really scary. Cut the commercial. Cut the commercial!
If you guys want to line up at the microphone, we'll do that in just a minute. So, you got into Tales from the Crypt, and then it took off. And did you have any idea that the staying power that you were going to have with this?
Not at all. Like I said, I collected the comic book. Obviously, it had been around since the 50s and 60s. And it was such a great franchise. I mean, honestly, I don't think the producers or HBO thought it would last that long either, because they did the first 3 episodes and they were directed by 3 of the producer-directors, Dick Donner, Bob Zemeckis, and Walter Hill. And they thought that might be all they could do because it was an expensive show to make.
Yeah.
And then they brought in Gil Adler, who had been doing Freddy's Nightmares as a showrunner, and he could get it done for the budget that they had. I mean, they were getting favors from everybody because they were such big producers. They could get any star they wanted to work for scale. They could get me for work for scale. The show took off after that. 93 episodes on cable was unheard of.
Yeah.
And so after that, they let the rights go. And I know everybody's like, why is the show not back on the air? We can't get the rights back from EC Comics, you know. William Gaines, who created EC Comics back in the day, loved the show. But, you know, I mean, he died years ago and his family has it. They probably gave it to some lawyer who, you know, had a pissing contest with one of the producers back in the day trying to get more money or whatever.
So it's all tied up in red tape.
So it's all tied up in red tape and has been for years.
Shame.
It is a shame because Tales from the Crypt, first of all, has been around for such a long time since the comic books. It deserves another, even if it's something different, if it's not what we did. But the problem is this is our version of the Crypt Keeper, so unless they license it to us, you're not going to get this Crypt Keeper, including me. And nobody wants to see that without it. It's just, that's the franchise.
It would be like the next generation kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm guessing, but...
Well, the merchandising is out there too, though.
Yeah, but
He's on everything.
It's ripped off. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, so really the Gaines family's missing out big time because they could have a part of that licensing. And it would mean, you know, be transferred to a lot of money. Like a lot of people were like, there's no Funko Pop. And I was like, there's nobody to license it from.
There's such a huge draw for people now, especially with us being able to get our hands on more things that was so nostalgic from our childhood.
Oh, forget it.
It was one of the first shows that got me into horror because HBO had those free weekends. Did you guys have that? It's like, oh, free weekend HBO, I'm watching every minute of it, and that Tales from the Crypt was part of that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll figure that out.
Well, you know, it's like, I don't go back and watch a lot of, I mean, I could name you off stuff from my IMDb page that, you know, bought me a house, but you would be like, I never heard of that piece of shit.
But
You know,
the check cashed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But Tales from the Crypt, you know, was something, I'm so glad that I get to sign and come see you folks for something that I love that we can talk about
Yes.
together. I'm sure there's people out there signing for stuff that they hated, you know,
Well,
whether
not
it
only
was
that.
because they got paid shit for it or it was the only thing that they had in their career or, you know,
We
or...
can't talk about certain things right now either.
Yeah, you know, that too. But it's just, you know, it is too bad because we would all like to see it back on the air. But in the meantime, there are 93. I just love when somebody comes up to me and goes, oh, you were my childhood. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? They're like, yeah, you know. Well, not only for the cartoon stuff, but for the, you know, the Tales from the Crypt. I mean, honestly, we did have the game show, and we had the cartoon and all
The
these
rap?
different things. The rap, yes, the Crypt Jam. And that kind of thing, but
And you also the icon at Universal Studios for Horror Nights.
oh yeah, we started out with that, and then after that they did Not Scary Farms, and Cassandra, Elvira, and I did all the commercials, and the Crypt Keeper would be talking to you while you were in line, and the stunt show that they would have, the Crypt Keeper would pop up, and blood would be everywhere, all over everybody in the audience, the whole thing, yeah. It was like as if Gallagher were on stage or something, you know. But you know, the whole nostalgia of it is great to hear. That people share such great stories about how like their whole family watched it. I'm like, really? Really? They're like, yeah, my parents were really cool. Or some people are like, I had to sneak down. Or my parents wouldn't let me watch it, so I watched it with my grandmother on the weekend.
That's this group of people. That's exactly what we are.
Oh, totally. You know, I mean, and that was me too as a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't have streaming, we didn't have videos, you couldn't rent the movies. You had to look through the TV guide or the newspaper insert to see what was playing that week, to see if you found something that you wanted to watch. And in Baltimore, where I grew up, anybody from Baltimore? Cricket, Baltimore, Cricket, Maryland? No, I'm just kidding.
I like crab cakes.
Tumbleweed going past the stage. Love crab cakes. But Edgar Allan Poe's from Baltimore. Nevermore. Poe is the name of the Ravens mascot, which is a raven. That's pretty cool. I went to Loch Raven, which was named, the reservoir that's near where my high school was actually named for Edgar Allan Poe, which was kind of cool.
Very cool.
So I've always come from the dark side. But back in Baltimore, they had something called Twilight Movie that played, I think like 4:30 in the afternoon. And I had done my homework or not. And sat and watched whatever was on when my mom would be cooking dinner or whatever. And they would have, they'd have everything from Doris Day movies to all the sci-fi movies like Mothra or, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. And then they'd have the Universal Horror Monster movies, which were just my favorite. I mean, I love Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein is still one of my favorite, definitely my favorite comedy horror movie. I remember there's this scene where they've come over from Transylvania and he shipped Frankenstein and the Frankenstein monster in a crate, and they're like finding him in the packing material, and I'm like, Mom, you can order Frankenstein. And I'm like flipping through the comic books looking for where you can order them, and I find, sure enough, of course it was a 6-foot cutout, but I had that in my room. I swear I would get closer to my bed every night. I think my brother was probably doing that to me, but yeah. No, the other one. I had two brothers, 2 sisters, yeah. The surprise was too small. I got my first ventriloquist dummy when I was 5.
Oh, see, that's scary to me.
I love ventriloquist dummies. They're so great to see inanimate objects brought to life. I think that's one of the things in art.
Yeah, like the dolls and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That it's always going to be somebody who's afraid of stuff like that because.
Yeah, because who wants to see your table come to life?
No, thank you. We have a first question. Go ahead.
So I just want to know, how did Have Yourself a Scary Little Christmas happen?
Say that again?
Have yourself a scary little Christmas?
Have yourself a scary little
We had a guy named Jack, and I wish Jack was still with us. He was an old advertising guy, but he was a copywriter and producer, and he would come to me and he'd go, "Hey kid, the Crypt Keeper's going to be doing Bud Light commercials." I was like, "Awesome!" And, I used to call him the Crypt Keeper's pimp. He didn't like that very much. I was like, "What else you got for me, Jack?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going to do Universal Horror Monster. We're going to do Universal tours. We're going to do, Not Scary Farms, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "We're going to do a Cryptmas album." I'm like, "Brilliant. I love this." So he goes, and I think you wrote a lot of it too. And Jack, so I thought I'd show up and there'd be some synthesizer tracks. They had hired an entire orchestra and put together this beautiful tracks for me to sing to, and then they just cut me loose for 2 days. And me and the engineer were alone in the room. I just had him laughing. I was just making up shit. I was going along, and the song. There's one number, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and the licensing wouldn't let us change the dialogue to that. So over top of it, they put the whole thing where the guy escapes from prison and as Santa Claus and that kind of stuff. It was kind of based on All Through the House. But I sang, if you listen to the track of just Have Yourself a Scary Little Christmas by itself, Merry Little Christmas, as the Crypt Keeper sing it, I tried to sing it as beautifully as I could, as the Crypt Keeper's like, "Have yourself a scary little Christmas." And I'm like going, "Oh my God," I was getting goosebumps listening to it, and then doing, "Hey, come here," over top of it. And I was like, I wish they just would have played it by itself. But it was such, out of all the stuff we did, it was just so well produced. The only sad thing was they did one pressing of it and sold them all in the first year. You can get one maybe on eBay for some ridiculous price or whatever.
Do you have a copy?
I do. I have a cassette tape. It's green, Tales from the Crypt green, is still packaged because I got nothing to play it on.
Yeah, it's a cassette tape anymore.
Exactly. It's like you might as well give me an 8-track. But people are like, "Those are cool. We use those now, man." But I'm so glad to see vinyl back.
Yeah.
And that's just in women's clothing.
Are you telling us? Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you.
Hi.
What's up, John? How you doing?
How you doing, man? Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. So I love hearing about your personal experiences working on Tales from the Crypt. I was wondering if you maybe have some behind-the-scenes stories or funny anecdotes that you might have not told any fans before that you remember from your time voicing the Crypt
all the
Keeper.
time.
Well, it was fun because, I had carte blanche to go down to the set anytime I wanted, because mainly my stuff I would do in the studio, record it with Kevin Yeager, because he was directed most of the Crypt Keeper sequences, and he would know what he was going to do. And the first time I went in to record, I'm going, "Hello, kiddies, it's your old pal," and he goes, "No. The puppet, we're using old machinery, can only talk about this fast. You know, so if you look at the earlier episodes, like,
The Crypt Keeper speaks more slowly and more ominously.
and that's only because the Crypt Keeper's mouth didn't work very well. You know.
Did they adjust it to be able to work?
Oh yeah, once
you?
the show was a hit, they gave more money, and then they,
Yes.
you know, we had more servos and the whole deal. But you know, and I'd crack them up in the studio, going, you know,
I love a ghoul who'll give you head and then let you keep it.
you know, and they're like, oh, we're using that. And I was like,
Yeah, because he did like walk the line a little bit of those
oh yeah.
windows.
I didn't, you know, sometimes I wasn't, you know, sure. I mean, I was like, there's no way they're using that, and they were like, you know, he's in bed with like a skeleton, and they have a box of chocolate sitting between them, and her head falls off in his lap, and he delivers that line. I'm just like, oh my God, this is great. But they always would, you know, allow me down to the set. I remember my parents had come out, and they had never seen or shoot of anything. And it was Death of Some Salesman, and Tim Curry in that episode plays the mother, the father, and the daughter. And they were shooting him as the daughter, Winona, that day. And he was just gruesome looking and just loving it. You know, they had, you can't really see it on film, but they had given him like earth shoes with, you know, Birkenstocks with like hammer toes, like fake hammer toes and all this stuff. And my parents were like, they didn't know who he was or anything. They just like, oh my God.
Is this
who
what
is
you
that?
went to school for?
Yeah, exactly, you know? And he couldn't have been, he was so funny to my parents, he wouldn't break character. And he was talking to them as Winona, which was kind of fun. But what a lot of people don't know is that some of the Crypt Keeper sequences where there's other actors in the scene, like with Arnold or Whoopi Goldberg or something like that, rather than having them have to play off a track, they would have me come down, and I get to, you know, so every time I look at something, I see them, and I go, I'm standing right off screen right there, talking to Arnold. There's, you know.
Did you ever act in any of the episodes? Did you get to do it?
I did one called, they kept wanting to put me in one, but I was busy at the time. I was still doing First and 10. I was still doing another series on NBC called FM, and I was doing Tales from the Crypt. It was, you know, my heyday of working, but, so finally, what was supposed to be the last season, the 6th season, I did an episode called Oils Well That Ends Well, which was with Lou Diamond Phillips, who's out here today, and Priscilla Presley, and Alan Ruck.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a really great cast. And we played some scam artists, and we were pulling scam. And they had written into it that I pop up out of a casket at some point, you know, like we faked my death. And I pop out of a casket, and you know, they threw in a Crypt Keeper laugh. But I love the ending because the Crypt Keeper's watching it. At the end, he goes, you know, kiddies, the other actors were good, but this one's a regular gory Cooper, a Robert Redford. And that voice, I could swear he reminds me of someone I know. You know, I just loved it. It was just so great. But that was a lot of fun. Thank you. It was a great question.
We have time for one more. Sorry, guys. We're going to have to wrap up after this one.
You can come by my table. I'll answer for you if you like.
Hi, John. Thanks so much for being here.
Sure.
Part of my question you sort of covered already. I was going to talk about the earlier sort of season 1 voice of the Crypt Keeper and overall the evolution of a character. When do you think you sort of hit your stride with the Crypt Keeper around what season perhaps, and the possibilities of a character like that?
You know, it was great because the first season we didn't have Gil Adler as the producer and writing on the show with Alan Katz, A.L. Katz. And those guys had come in going, listen, you're a stand-up comic, you do all this fun stuff on your own, you do
And you still
impersonations.
felt like you weren't, right?
You know, yeah, exactly. You know, although I was doing it every pilot season to get pilots and stuff, you know. And, but they were like, we would love to explore the Crypt Keeper when he's not in the crypt, what kind of stuff he does. You know, doing stand-up comedy, playing golf, you know, being a doctor, you know, all this stuff. And I was like, cool. This is gonna be fun, you know? I mean, when they came in one day and they're doing the Crypt Keeper as Stanley Kowalski, you know, as Marlon Brando doing Stanley Kowalski in The Streetcar Named Desire, I was like, this is awesome. He's like, Stella! You know, the Crypt Keeper, it was, I can't remember what episode it was, but it was, I think it was the one, maybe the one where Martin Sheen plays an actor or something like, or maybe it's John Lovitz. Anyway, it was, yeah, right? Martin Sheen, John Lovitz. How do you get that mixed up?
Same guy.
The same guy. No, there was 2 episodes about, no, Martin Sheen, he was a magician. John Lovitz was an actor who, like, I think he killed for a part or something like that. And of course, it came back to bite him in the ass. But as everything happens, that way it does in the Crypt. But that's when it really started to take off. Like, they were like, we're gonna dress him up like, you know, we're gonna dress him up like Howard Stern. He's gonna be a shock jock, you know, and that kind of stuff. And so that's when it really, you know, when we really started to have like just bizarre fun with the Crypt Keeper doing the most amazing stuff.
Kind of let him loose.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember him golfing, and he hits the ball and it goes into the he goes hits the ball into a skull's mouth. And he goes, that was my caddy, Juan. I just hit a hole in Juan.
It's just like endless puns and dad jokes, but
I would have to make up my own sometimes. Every season, we would launch the show and I would do radio interviews as the Crypt Keeper on drive time, you know, where people are driving to work, where they have those live, you know, Mark and Brian type guys that are sitting there doing their thing. And it would start on the East Coast at 5 in the morning for me, and I would do, over the span of 2 days, like 50, 60 interviews as the Crypt Keeper. So they didn't want to talk to me, they wanted to talk to the Crypt Keeper, so I would have to have like all these puns in the back of my mind on a cheat sheet everywhere. I'd be writing stuff down when they were talking, whatever, to be able to improvise as the Crypt Keeper, which was a lot of fun.
you never lose those muscles with improv either.
No, people are always, you know, constant. I love when somebody comes up and they tell me something that they remember or something they do for a living, and it'll spark either a new pun or a pun that I remembered from a long time ago, you know.
It's still
It'll
cool.
come, yeah. Yeah, my wife hates it, but
But we love it.
enough of the puns already, yeah.
And we'll make sure we come visit him at his table. We'll be back there this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. John Kassir.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you for coming.